being more organized with your team. So if you are a small business owner, and of course, doesn't really matter the size, but if you have at least one or more people on your team, do you think it's important to be organized with their goals, their skills, their strengths, training and resources they might be interested in learning or finding out where they're at into the next, having in the next raise? So if this is something that's important to you, this video might be something you want to watch, as well as maybe share with other people and get started on it, or time to pick it up and get working on it again. But when you have a team, I was with one of my clients who's a yacht broker, and we sat down in a team meeting together. He does his best to have team meetings once a week. One of the things that I reminded him of, and one day he didn't have a meeting, I said, did you give them at least 24 hours or more, maybe a little bit less or whatever, notice that you had to cancel? He says, no. I thought, well, wouldn't you think it'd be more respectful and important to let them know ahead of time if you weren't going to have it, especially if they know that every Tuesday at their night they're having a meeting? He's like, yeah. So there's one idea, that's something to think about. Make sure I was even involved in a meeting to go to yesterday, and they did not let me know in advance that the meeting got canceled. And they knew 24 hours in advance. But anyways, thinking about the team, staying organized with your team. Who's on your team? Do you have it in a binder? So I suggested to my client, he did think it was important, but during this meeting, he did write down, because the goal was how many boats his team members wanted to sell by the end of the year, and have all that stuff written down. I did more of the meeting, letting him ask some questions, keeping up with what people were saying. I said, do you have each one of those organized in a folder somewhere? He said, no. I thought, well, do you think it's important? So he said, yes. I had thought of a college line notebook that happened to have different tabs, but he decided to take a binder and make their own tabs and own paper. Now he just got to keep up with it. Because I think it's important when you talk to your team members, do you meet with them once a week? And what about individually? When's the last time you sat down with them to assess them? Do you have an assessment to go over of the skills and abilities that you feel that they could be improving upon? I would say something like professionalism. Look up the skills when it comes to professionalism, and think of what skills are important to you. You feel that they are good at, and of course, asking them where they think they're good at and they'd like to improve upon. What kind of skills do they like to learn? Is it communication, networking, goal setting? Are there any resources that you guys provide that's online they haven't taken advantage of looking at yet? Are there any other courses, workshops, or seminars or conferences to go to that they also may like to consider attending? So being able to provide these are good resources, but also keeping track of your team members and letting them know where they're at on maybe a quarterly basis of what's going on, and letting them know where they're at. And of course, if not meeting these goals that you have set for them and they have set for themselves, might be getting close to, to no longer be part of that team, and letting them know that. Of course, good, a notice would be great to let them know in advance how many chances they get before they no longer can be there. Stepping up to the plate, because who wants to keep babysitting people if they're really not doing what they said they're going to do? But be the best leader and lead by example. Because I did share an article with my client recently on boss versus leader, and he realized there were some areas in his life, in the business, that he's being a good leader, but certain areas that he's not. So taking in some consideration that he is working toward making that better to get the best results. And we got an event coming up soon, and he's been to one of these events before, and the goal is to make this one bigger and better than it was last time. And here to guide him to make sure that I'll be with him on this event too, that what he'd like to expect from them, what goals to put out, let them know, sharing what things he wants to have happen, let them be part of engaging with him to find out what is important to them, making sure they all understand, talking with them, but getting their feedback, and also keeping that binder around with him anytime anywhere he goes. So anytime he has conversations with his team members, he can keep track of their last conversation. Kind of the same thing I do when it comes to meeting people at a networking event. I keep their card. I keep track of when I email them or text them and doing my follow-up. Because if I don't keep track, how am I going to remember the last time we talked and what the next step is? So having good follow-up is key. Now, if you think this is something that's important to you, not sure where to start, like some ideas, definitely reach out. Love to support you in getting better organized with your team. And of course, also maybe attracting the ideal team members. So what are your thoughts about this video? Share your comments, share it with others, add your comments, and of course, always see you on the next video.